My high school bully slept with my wife. But he had no idea I knew everything led in, and that the recorder he laughed over would eventually put him in prison.
I never expected to become the kind of man who double-checks every shadow in his own office. But there I was at 3 a.m, standing under the dim conference room lights, preparing for a conversation I knew would unravel my life. My name is Connor, 30 years old. Steele sales manager, married, owner of a quiet life. Until 6 weeks ago, when the past I'd tried to leave behind forced its way into my present. His name was Ben Richardson, and the moment he walked into my office with that same arrogance from high school, a familiar tension gripped my chest. Ben was the golden boy, the quarterback, the charmer. And once upon a time, my bully. He used to call me Strange Connor, a nickname that followed me for years. I thought adulthood would erase it, but old habits cling to people like vines. Now he needed my company to supply steel for one of his construction projects. He strolled around like he owned the place, offering compliments with sharp edges. Connor, man. Never thought you'd be running a department. Good on you. Fake praise, old wounds. A smirk that carried history. My wife, Rose, found him entertaining. She laughed at stories about our school year stories he told in a way that made me feel small. And when he leaned too close during dinner, smiling too widely, something inside me tightened with warning. I pushed it aside. I shouldn't have. A week later, Rose's phone lit up while she was in the shower. A preview flashed across the screen. Ben R. Looking forward to tonight. My stomach dropped. Rose had told me she was meeting an old friend. I tried to think logically, but suspicion seeps into the cracks you don't even know you have. Instead of accusations, I chose observation. Slowly, her routine changed. Longer outings. More defensiveness. Her explanations became thinner and didn't line up. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but I couldn't ignore the shift. I hired a private investigator not to punish her, but to understand what I was dealing with. 3 days later, I received a folder. It didn't contain anything explicit, but it showed enough. Rose and Ben meeting privately, more than once, in ways that made their connection painfully clear. But the investigator found something else, something I never expected. Ben had a pattern of sabotaging rivals through personal manipulation. He befriended their spouses, gathered sensitive business information, and used it to undercut competitors. I wasn't his first target, but I would be his last. I did something I never imagined I would. I reached out to Ben's wife, Linda. She wasn't angry or dramatic. She was just tired. Tired of secrets, tired of damage. When I shared what I'd learned, she nodded as if she already knew. He ruins people, she said softly. He twists relationships to get ahead. Not just yours, Linda decided to separate from him. That was her choice, not mine. But what she shared next changed everything. Documents and emails showing how Ben systematically cultivated chaos around his business competitors. It wasn't criminal, but it was deeply unethical. And it meant I finally understood what I was up against. I invited Ben to my office after hours. Just him and me, neutral territory. He arrived with his usual swagger. Thought we could celebrate the project, he said. Instead, I opened my laptop and turned it toward him, showing the investigator his timeline of his meetings with Rose and the notes on how he de-targeted multiple families for business leverage. His confidence flickered. Connor, this isn't what it looks like. I kept my voice steady. You've been pulling the same game for years. Creating tensions, destabilizing people, and using personal connections to get ahead. I'm not playing along, he tried to regain control, twisting everything into misunderstandings and jokes. But this time, he was dealing with someone who had learned to stand firm. What do you want? He finally asked, all bravado gone. I want you to step away from my marriage, I said. And from any business connected to mine. No more manipulation. No more proximity. For the first time, he had no comeback. Ben didn't threaten or blow up, he simply left. And over the next few weeks, the consequences of his actions caught up with him. Linda filed for separation. Several former clients confronted him about his past dealings. A partnership deal fell apart. He hadn't committed a crime, but patterns of dishonesty eventually collapse under their own weight. As for my marriage, Rose and I sat down and really talked. The truth hurt both of us, but honesty sometimes reveals faults that were already there. We chose to separate, peacefully, respectfully, because the trust between us had eroded long before Ben ever showed up. I transferred to a Seattle branch office, bought a small cabin near a quiet lake, and refocused my life. Some evenings, I sit on the deck with a book and watch the water ripple at sunset, feeling a simplicity I'd forgotten I needed. Sometimes I think about the boy I used to be, the one Ben teased relentlessly, who didn't know how to stand up for himself. But that boy grew up. He found strength in observation, clarity, and patience. He understood that not every battle requires aggression. In the end, I walked away with my integrity intact. Ben lost his support system. Rose and I each found new beginnings. Actions have consequences not because someone enforces them, but because truth eventually surfaces on its own. And sometimes, the quietest kind of strength is simply choosing to walk toward a better life, instead of staying to fight a pointless one. Thanks for watching. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more.